Hey, yep. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About It. I'm your host, Twist Jones. So grab your drinks or your substance or stay sober minded, if you will. And with that being said, let's start the show. But if you're feeling my vibe, like, share, and subscribe. You can catch all my social media handles at the description below. And before we get into this, man, in the screen with me, we got the current events that nobody asked for. Today's current events, we're going to be talking about a book. Hope that you can see it. All right, 5 seconds. Okay, and the book is called "The Benefits of Being an Octopus." And I'll just give you a little bit of description of the back. It's by Karen Heese. This is a compassionate look at poverty, hard choices, and defending one's right to be treated humanly. And it's a very fine first novel written by the deft hands of Karen. So a little bit about it is some people do their homework. Some people they get to have crushes on boys. Some people they have other things that they've got to do. Seventh grader Zoe has hands full as she takes care of her much younger siblings after school every day while her mom works her late night shifts at a pizza parlor. Not that her mom seems to be appreciated about it, but at least there's Lenny, her mom's boyfriend. They all get to live in his nice, clean trailer. And at school, Zoe tries to stay under the radar by her social peers so she doesn't get peer pressured and teased because of her lack of great clothing and good clothing to wear. And her only friend is Francesca, who has her own issues, and since they are entirely in different worlds than the rich kids, it's best if one of them does stay out of notice. It goes on to state about the poverties and the experiences that these kids, Zoe and her mom and the boyfriend, how they navigate life in the poverty spectrum. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, it's called The Benefits of Being an Octopus, a novel by Karen Heath. You can find us on Amazon. You can find it in Barnes and Nobles, or you can just cross-reference it in Google and type in the title, The Benefits of Being an Octopus. Co-writer Ann Braden. That's A-N-N, Braden. All right. So now that we got the current events that nobody asked for out the way, we got this brother in here today. We've been talking behind the scenes, just trying to get this off the floor, and finally we got it.
Yes,
One of
sir.
my bro, one of my brother podcasters out there, related to us. So, without further ado, tell us who you are, where you from, and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Thank you, man. First off, I just want to say thanks, man, for inviting me. My name is Hector, and I'm originally from LA, but the industry that I work in, the aerospace industry, it made me navigate further north. So I left LA about, I don't know, about 10 years ago now. I'm in a little town called Tehachapi. It's a little mountain town, dude. It's like 2 hours, two and a half hours from LA north, and man, I love it here. So, and thankfully my work is here. So it's cool. But yeah, man, my name is Hector. I'm from LA. I'm 35, and uh, basically, man, I started podcasting. I have a podcast, like you said. Thank you, man. But it's called Talkeria, and I came up with the name simply by, first off, Gift of Gab was gone, right? Because that's a hip hop artist who I freaking love. But everyone tells me like, dude, you could just talk to anybody at any time, and I'm like, yeah. And then one time I was at work, and this one dude, this homie, shout out Brian, but he's like, hey man, you should invest in yourself. And I'm like, what the hell is that? I was like, what does that mean, fool? And he's like, and then he told me that, he's like, Hector, you got a gift, bro. You could talk to anybody, literally anybody, and make friends with them like this off the cuff. And I was like, oh shit, you're right. And right then and there, I started getting into podcasting, listening to them, and I'm like, oh shit, I should start a podcast. You feel me? And it just clicked, like it just clicked, But yeah, man, that's who I am. That's why I started doing a podcast, and although I took a little break, I am gonna hop on it with new ideas that I got.
Okay. Before we jump further into the conversations and the interview, let's do the pour out or pour up. So, who you pouring out for, or who you pouring up for?
When you told me this idea, dude, I freaking loved it, And then, like I told you before the show started, man, it's Day of the Dead for Mexican culture, which I am, Mexican American, man, and today,
Chicano.
yes, sir, and so it's Day of the Dead, so it's a trip that we started this day, and it's a trip that you do that. But my pour out, man, is for I just lost an aunt of mine, not too long ago, about a year and a half ago, and I miss her and I love her, so her name was Esther, but she was my tia Pera, so shout out to her. And I always got to shout out a cousin of mine who I lost, very dear to me, very dear to my heart. He passed away a few years ago too, and I miss him too, so shout out Oscar.
Shout out to them. I don't have any tequila on hand.
Oh,
For
damn.
Mexicanos, we ain't gonna stereotype out there. We do got some DMR
Okay.
amaretto for the English
Hell
people,
yeah.
so we gonna pour
Hell
out for
yeah,
them.
dude.
All right. Um, that's for camera purposes. I gotta stay focused, so I won't drink
Oh, you're good.
it.
You're good, dog.
uh, and I'm not edited. Yeah, it's true. So, um, let's get into it, Hector. So yes, I reached out to you because I am a fan of the show. I've been following. I was introduced to the show by Steve Jeezy from We Are the Mess. Shout out to Steve Jeezy, and I just been following. And then, yeah, like you said, it was like poof, and I just wanted to know what happened. So I reached out, and luckily you were approachable. You were respectable. Like we got together. You was like you would
Hey.
love to do the show, and this is why we here. So I just wanted to, before we even get into why it stopped, let's ask how did it start. You touched a little bit about it, but how did you come up with the name Tokaria, and what inspired it, and what other podcasts have you done in the past that led up to Tokaria?
Yeah, yeah. So, Taqueria, the name started, man. I wanted something original, something that you don't really hear. And it's funny being a Mexican American man. When people hear Taqueria, they hear a taqueria, which is a taco truck. So when somebody told me that, I was like, damn, should I change the name? And I debated it, and I'm like, you know what? It was the first name I thought of, so I'm just gonna go with that, And then it's funny, my artwork. Um, I used to have a social media called MeWe, and I just wanted to try it, see how it was. I heard it was cool. It was like whatever on the real, but somebody does art there. She's like, I'll do it for free. Just give me props for it. And I was like, sure. So boom, that's how the artwork happened. And the name basically started with me not being able to shut up, dog. Basically, it's like diarrhea from the mouth, dog. Like I could just keep going and going with really anybody, whoever's down to just kick it, have a few beers, just talk, man. I love that, dude. And that was also the main goal, was to get a lot of my old friends that have done a lot in their lives, and since we all grew up and we went our separate ways, I wanted to basically say, you know what, hey man, let's meet up for an hour, even if we're far away, even if there's you're over there, I'm over here, let's meet up online and let's talk for an hour or two, man. So I kind of used it as an excuse to just catch up with the homies too, so it's a trip. But
Right.
yeah, man, that's basically how it started. And then just a lot of my friends, man, they've done so much in their life, that I think needs to be shared and heard, dog, by anybody, by anybody willing to listen. And then more and more I got to know people, and then I'm like, man, this guy would be a great guest, so and I also mentioned though in my pod, dog, how it's, I had the time, at the time I had the time to do this. Now, everyone gets older, and then I didn't think about the other person. I didn't think about if they had time, the people that I'm asking to get on my show. So I realized quickly, man, that damn podcasting is a job. It's a, it could be a hobby, obviously, right? But even a hobby, sooner or later, the more serious you want to go with it, it's going to turn into a job. And that's what
Right.
it was turning into for me somewhat, and I was like, damn. And then, my wife had gotten pregnant, and I was just like, dang, man, like, so I still tried it, I was still doing it, but, and then I just wanted to, like, take a step back and be like, okay, let me, normally my pod was originally to try to get a guest in. So when I didn't have a guest coming in, it was like, shit, what am I going to talk about? So now that's why I kind of slowed down and be like, let me reevaluate the pod. Let me see if I could do something that just requires me, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I want to not change the name or anything like that, but kind of reanalyze what I want to talk about, basically.
You touched on a good point that podcasting is a hobby that could turn into a job.
For
When I
real.
started podcasting like a few years back, it was a hobby. It was something I enjoyed. I liked having conversations. Most of my content is interview based, but as you go on and you stay consistent and you become persistent with interacting with other content creators and
Yep.
influencers, it does become some sort of a job, but you still want to have the fundamentals and still have fun with it. A lot of people, they lose that compassion for the simple fact that it starts to require more of your dedicated time. But if you have your niche, whichever way that you want to talk, call it, that as long as you stay consistent and as long as you have something to talk about, then you still will have an audience. You still will have supporters. I got up and initially we were just talking about anything and everything, but back in the day it was more I didn't understand, so my voice was more directed towards agenda.
Mm.
I'll be honest about that. It was agenda pushing. So I would talk about things that I would have conversations about in life, and I would get on air with other individuals, and then we would talk about it, trying not to push agenda, but it was pushing
Yep.
agenda because even doing with the research, it still would be controversial for the simple fact that there's other sides. For example, um, when I was on the Kickback podcast, we talked about relationships, and we were talking about having absent fathers or absent parents, and we were talking about it from our perspective. And it was a kind of mixed review. It was negative and positive. However, there were other individuals outside in the world who had absent parents and they actually turned out pretty okay. It wasn't much traumas because other people stepped in as guardians or, adapted parents.
Right.
So it's like, even though you do have something to say, and I encourage everybody to utilize their voice, you still want to make sure that you're not agenda pushing,
Yep.
but you're giving conversation. You're not giving out expert advice without the proper experience. And if you're going to be touching on controversial conversations, you have to make sure that you dive deep. You can't come up with the information within a week, within a day.
Yeah.
You actually got to dive deep and talk to all walks of life, different coaches before you get up on air and something that's supposed to be educational or entertainment and fun turns into a controversial conversation
Yep.
because you tick the nerve because you're talking, but you're talking out of turn because you didn't do the proper research. And that's something that I learned before I get up here. And if it's not just entertainment, like for instance, if you want to just bullshit about sports, you can
Yeah.
say whatever you want. If you want to talk about relationships, that's controversial. You give your point of view, your perspective, and it's actually to prompt people to talk. But if you're going to be talking about like stuff like taking care of your kids, being an absent parent, or how to utilize tools or gadgets, you want to make sure that you're talking to the people out there who have the experience,
Yep.
who have the expertise. When you're talking about services like being a dentist or being a book author or being a music artist, you want to dig deep and you want to talk to different varieties of musicians. You want to talk to rap artists, you want to talk to rock, pop, different genres.
Yes,
If you
sir.
want to talk about books, you got to talk to authors. You got to talk to the ghostwriters, which I had no knowledge that exists until I
Yeah.
started digging. You also want to talk to the publishers, and it's levels to everything. So
Yeah.
when you jumping into podcasts and you talking, you don't want to just push your opinion. You want to give educated opinions. That's what I want
Yeah.
to call it. And that's what I learned about podcasting.
Dude, and you're absolutely right, dog. Like I did one podcast and I did it, and it was supposed to be about homeschooling, and I was super excited too because she came from another podcast that I listened to. So when I hit her up and she was down, I was like, oh my goodness, I was nervous, But once we got into it, originally, and we did talk about it, homeschooling, and then we veered off and we went into like conspiracy theories, which I love. I freaking love conspiracy theories, and that did have some kickback, but while I was doing it, it was just a conversation that I was having with her and I, and when I reheard it, when I edited it a little bit, I noticed and I was like, damn, dude, let's see how this one's gonna get accepted. So I did an intro to it, and I said, hey man, what you're about to hear is solely mine and this lady's opinion.
Right.
If if you don't agree with it, hey man, I respect you for that, but this is just solely our opinions, and it did have some kickback with some friends. They didn't really dig it, but the majority of my homies were like, dude, I love that one. Like
Right.
start doing more of that. And I'm like, oh man, like we'll see, where it gets. So it's a trick that you mentioned that, man, because yeah, that's one side of podcasting that people don't really think about. You feel me? And then like it's also the fact that, like you said, like carrying a conversation with yourself, right? If you don't have a guest, it could get a little hard, bro. It could like
Absolutely.
there's no one there to help you carry the load, right? So
Hmm.
if you spend a little too much time quiet, boom, there goes an awkward little silent moment, that you didn't realize you just had. Or my
Absolutely.
main problem was repeating myself with the same words. I kept using the same words, so I put a whiteboard up on my room. You can't see it; it's on the other side. But I have a whiteboard up, and I put the words that I repeat, and in big bold letters, it says, "Don't use these words so much." And it's like six of them. So every time I look up, I'm like, oh shit, that's right. Let me not use those words. I've been using them for a while.
Yeah, like for myself, I agree. I've had people hit me up who watched the show and they gave me feedback and they would tell me watch saying so much. Watch
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
So trying to fill that in, I turned into like. So now I gotta watch that part, but
Yeah.
that's my everyday vocabulary. So it's to where you learn from the mistakes. I'll get back in like reversing for the see there it
Yep.
is. For there it is again. All right. Conspiracy theories. We're gonna have Billy Owens come up. He's a conspiracy theorist, and
Oh,
it's
no way.
interesting that you were talking about that. Yeah, so he'll be coming up to the show soon. We have to be very careful about when we're talking about conspiracy theory because there's a lot of research and there's facts within the opinions.
Yep.
So
Definitely.
before we even air it, we're doing a lot of homework. We're doing the science behind it. We're seeing what the experts are saying. That's a funny mention that you said that because when I was saying when you don't know your research and you're not doing your diligence of picking up the
Yes,
homework,
sir.
you can't please everybody. Let's put
You,
that out there. When you
you're
when you're
not.
having a podcast and you're talking,
Yep.
especially when you're doing a solo podcast, you're gonna have those awkward silences, but you're only going off of the education that you have. You're
Yep.
utilizing Google, you're utilizing the internet, you're utilizing experts, you're utilizing conversations. However, once it airs, you put it out. You think you did great. Here's the feedback. Hey, I really enjoyed that episode. However, you forgot to touch on this. You didn't touch on that. I would have liked to hear more of this. Thing is that you're not going to be able to please everyone that's watching. And this is why you have these other individuals come up so you can have these conversations instead of getting canceled. You can get counseled. Shout out to Charlamagne
Yep.
the God for that statement.
I like that.
So when it comes to conspiracy theories, we are developing, and we've been developing this episode for what 5 6 months. We're probably going to keep going. I'll give a spoiler of what we are trying to get across. We're going to be arguing if the Earth is flat or round.
Here we go.
And here we go. And it's a sticky situation. It's a topic that everyone has explored. Everyone's put their
Yeah.
perspectives and their opinions on it. I'm excited to do it. Billy Owens, he brought it to my attention. He's excited to do it, and I just keep asking, "You sure you want to do this? You sure you want to do that?" Because we put that content out there, people are going to start arguing back and
Yeah.
saying behind the scenes. A lot of comments don't fly on the show as of yet, but behind the scenes,
Yeah.
people do DM and say, uh, yo, you forgot this, or I didn't like how you spent that. Yo, here's a piece from this side, just so you know. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, you could have came up and you could have helped the brother out before I got
Yeah.
there. So you
Before, right?
gotta,
Yep.
even though you have a voice, you still want to do your diligence of having an education of what you're talking about. Unless you're just a podcast who just like to talk about bullshit, then by all means you don't need to add any smarts or any intelligence behind it. There's no research behind just regular organic conversation. But if you're going to be talking about a topic that inquires some type of education, some type of scholars and experts at the craft, you might want to channel in and contact.
Write
which
some
is
shit
when we're
down.
talking about when we're talking about podcasting, I gotta talk to my fellow podcasters.
Yeah.
So Hector, when you're telling us about the ins and outs and the struggles of having a podcast, what would you say is the blessings of having a podcast?
Man, believe it or not, dog. Like again, it was turning into somewhat of a job, right? But the blessings were literally just taking an hour or an hour and a half, sometimes even 40 minutes, whatever, one night to just sit down and talk to someone, dog. You it's not a losing art, right? But at times, and myself too, I'm guilty of it too. We're stuck on our phone, just texting somebody or calling somebody or something like that, right? And you don't really ask how this person is doing, dog. You're just talking with a set idea with this person, like, oh shit, I need to hit them up because I want to know if they have this or this and that. Not just to hit them up, not just to hit them up and be like, hey man, how you doing? And I've done that with a cousin of mine. He's like, what do you mean? How am I doing? I'm like, I just called you because I missed you, dude. Like, what are you doing? And he just kind of got like, what the fuck? Like, he got weirded out by it, and he's like, you're not calling for anything? I'm like, no, I just called you because I want to see how you're doing. So it taught me that, dude. It taught me that to sometimes if you want to call somebody because you missed a person, hit them up. Like, hey, hit them up, be like, hey man, you wanna get on a pod real quick, or you just want to talk on the phone real quick, man. Let me, I haven't seen you in a while, dude. I just want to see how you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
And so that to me, that one was the biggest blessing, and also getting to know new people. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
had a few guests on here that I never met in my life, man. I saw them on Instagram. I loved their hustle. I love what they were doing, and I just hit them up and be like, hey man, I got this little pod going. Like I would love for you to become a guest on it. And boom, it you strike a relationship right there with this person, and now every now and then he hits me up, I hit him up, so it's those little blessings, man, that actually made me love podcasting,
Mm-hmm.
just slowing down, talk to your friends or talk to a new person and actually get to know them and actually listen to what they have to say, bro.
Amen. And as a fellow podcaster, when you first starting out, you tend to get anxieties about the numbers, the people who are watching. You're working overtime with editing and putting up these thumbnails, writing the descriptions for the
Yep.
platforms that you put your podcast on. You put it up, and when you go back to see it, it's not doing the numbers that you want it to do. Like I've talking to many up and coming podcasters, many beginners, even people who are seasoned and high profile podcasters.
Yep.
I'm starting to be able to tap into that domain, and everyone agrees that consistency and staying in your own lane. Don't look at other individuals that started with you. You're looking at their numbers and you're comparing yours. You have to understand that that will make you have some type of fear and you'll get anxiety of just feeling like you failed. What
Yep.
anxieties do you feel? Like what is the mental health piece for podcasting for yourself? Like what are some things that like you've experienced?
The main one is getting guests. Again, when I said, like, when I started the podcast, I had time. You feel me? To sit down with someone, and I didn't realize that this person was gonna be busy. It was kind of thinking about me, and kind of be like, well, I have the time, I could do this, but I never thought about the people that I'm trying to get. They got lives too. You feel me? And like they got shit to do, dog. So it's like I didn't realize that, man. So and the next thing you know, when I first started, I was doing a once a week pod, and man, it was becoming a hassle, bro, trying to find somebody
Mm.
to get for the next week. And then I messed up. I did like 3 interviews in 1 week, and I chilled the next 2 weeks. So I'm like, I got three already, So it made me get lazy a little. And then next thing you
Mm.
know, those 3 weeks are gone, and I'm like, shit, I forgot to get a guest. So and then I'd have to come off the cuff either by a solo one or try to find somebody to hop in with me. So that one to me is the hardest. To
Mm.
get somebody and you get them, and finding a date, man. Finding a date again. Adults got adult shit to do, dog. So finding a date and time was a mission.
Right. It sounds like the stresses are interaction, socialization, and networking, and also the fear of rejection. Reaching out to people and being rejected, or coming up with a date and time and they don't show up. I've had those experiences as well.
Yeah, they always say, "Oh, I'm done," and then you finally hit them up and be like, "Well, what day works?" And they're like, they don't reply. You're like, well, "What the fuck? You're telling me you're done, and now you're not hitting me up. Like, what's up, man? Like, it's all right. I'm a big
Yeah.
boy, man. You can tell me no."
I mean, yeah, like it's all to it. You know what another podcaster told me? They were saying, and they're a little bit higher up there. They were telling me that they learned the secret, and now I'm learning it myself, and I adapted that is to stop hitting up your homies. Like stop hitting like in the beginning, yeah, blitz it and let them know what you're doing, but after that, you gotta organically get your followers. Even people that you don't know, you gotta step out your image,
Yep.
which I have a problem with. If I hit you once or I hit you twice, I don't want to keep going unless I really really want you on the show. But I was also told that that's not a negative. It all depends on like what you're trying to get across. But you don't want to be so persistent that it becomes annoying and it becomes like harassing. So you want to hit up people if you guys are having an interaction to where it's like, yeah, I'll come on your show, I'll do it. But if you constantly trying to get it off the floor and it's not happening, you come up with days, you come up with times.
Yep.
Obviously, it's you don't want to look at it as the intention that like they don't want to do the show. It's just life happens and you might not be giving them compensation. So, people are not motivated when there's no compensation behind.
Yeah.
The other part of it is wrapping back into what I was saying about not hitting up your family and people in your backyard is that they want to help you, they want to support you, but they might not have like the motivation that you have.
Yeah.
They want to be there for you, so it's like, okay, I'm going to get up. And then trying to get people to come up on your show, that could be in a hassle as well because they have busy schedules themselves. They
Exactly.
have busy schedules themselves, and I'm learning that, and I'm also learning that's the point that I was missing. I had a hard time networking. I'm good at networking, but networking for content creation, I found myself feeling like, well, I'm above trying to hit a high profile creator or music artist or producer,
Yeah.
someone influencer. I'm not going to put myself out there and they're just reading what I'm saying or they're going to reject me. So I'll just do it once. But I was also, as I learned off the experience, not everyone's going to respond because they have thousands and thousands of inquiries and booking
Yep.
requests that are asking. And I also learned that in our world, that's not considered support or opportunity of collaboration. That's considered a handout. So I'm a nobody, you're a nobody, we all somebodies, but in this world, we're just starting out.
Yeah.
So we're nobodies, but they have the numbers, they have the views, they have the content, and it's a reason why you want them on your show. That's what they think. Some of us, we just really fans and we're supporters that we actually just want to say, I had them on
Yep.
my show before.
Yep.
Now, here's the thing. They don't know you, so they're thinking like you're just hitting me up because you want what I have on my platform. So you gotta take into consideration how many people are hitting them up with the same pictures and the same ideas.
Yeah.
And when you're hitting them up, you hit them up in 5 minutes, your DM or your text went all the way down to the bottom because there's
Yep.
hundreds of other people. What you want to do is you want to stay consistent, and that was something that I had to learn. You have to keep saying, hey, what's up, this is me, this is what I'm doing. Eventually they would catch it. I've had a few interactions with individuals that eventually they did say, hey, what's up, yeah, let's do the show, or hey, what's up, I'm kind of booked right now, but get back to me this month. And then there were others that just watched, so I'm just like, okay, well, they're seeing it and they're responding back,
At
so
least.
I'll continue to keep going. Now if you are hitting someone up and you don't get any feedback and it doesn't go where it's supposed to, I'll say try again at least like 4 or 5 times.
Mhm.
That's the persistence. But after a while, let it go. And if they run
Yep.
across you, they run across you. If you stay consistent of stuff, it's telephone in this world. Like eventually, like someone is going to mention you to someone else. And
Yep.
podcasting and having a content, having a show, it's so broad these days. So I say it all the time now. You don't know who's watching you, and you don't know who's going to come across you. You could be saying thank you to someone, and they can return the favor and say, "Oh, thank you. I've been watching you." You be like, "Wow, that's crazy."
Yeah, it is.
So just don't get discouraged and like understand. I hope that I didn't lose track because it was like two
No, I
different
feel you.
points
I
in
feel
that.
you. No,
Um,
it totally makes
you're
sense, dude.
Hispanic. You're Hispanic, right?
Yeah.
I got a question because I had people knowing that you were coming up, and this is a great question I ask all of my Latino people. You're Mexican. I grew
Yeah.
up on the East Coast where the Hispanic population is Dominican and Puerto Ricans,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Hondurans. So what's the division? Because what's the division? Because you have some people say when it comes to Mexicans or like Spaniards that they're Hispanics, but Puerto Ricans and Dominicans will say they're Spanish.
Yeah. Yeah. So
How do you feel about this? Break it down.
great, great, great fucking question, like serious. Like one time, I talked to, I was a lot younger, and I talked to my mom about it, and I was like, like mom, like how come like Salvadorians and like and Puerto Ricans and all, like, we don't get along with them? Like, why is that like a thing? And she just, she didn't even know, Doug. She was just like, hey, well, I just know they don't like us, so we don't like them. And I'm like, damn, dude, that's it. Like, over. So I kind of looked it up at one point because I wanted to see what's up, and I forgot all. I forgot what I read, but me, I'm not really with that, dude. Like, I'm not, I was like, you're Salvadorian. I was like, well, this guy's the strike one. Like, nah, on the real, I don't care, dog. If you come at me, cool. My dad, rest his soul, he told me, hey, you give respect and you get respect. That's it. And if this guy's being real cool, real respectful, and I'm doing the same to him, I'll be like, hey, man, these guys cool people. Doesn't matter who you are. But I tripped out on that you mentioned that, man, because yeah, I don't know what the beef is about, dog. On the real, we're all Latinos. You know,
Right.
um, we all speak Spanish. Yeah, some of my words may not mean the same thing, on your side, and some of the
Hmm.
words you say don't mean the same thing on them. But for the most part, Doc,
Absolutely.
we can understand what one another are saying when we're speaking Spanish. So
Hmm.
yeah, I don't get it. I don't get the division, man. Especially people on the East Coast. I actually walk because I'm a huge hip hop fan, and my favorite hip hop is on the East. So when I meet somebody from the East Coast, dude, I want to talk about hip hop with them just because I love it so much. So I welcome people from the East, man. They're cool people.
Right. Right, and I think that that's also stuff that the media mixed up. And remember, back in the '90s, you had the Biggie and Tupac
Yep. Yep.
situation with that. Coming from the East Coast, here's the difference: is that like it's a culture shock from East Coast to West Coast. Mexicans on the East Coast are more reserved and they're to themselves,
Yeah.
but coming on the West Coast, the Mexican brothers and sisters are more embraceful.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I had trouble like interacting at first because of the normalcy on the culture that I come from, that like Mexicans and blacks, they don't get along that well.
Yeah.
So it's an issue. But coming over here, it was embraceful, like, hey, my friend. Like I was just
Yes,
like, oh
sir.
shit, they probably gonna line me up. But it
Nah.
was all love, and like we educate each other. But also, I'm black and I'm Puerto Rican. So when I'm talking to my Spanish side, I started to educate myself, and I even Googled some information. It's like, why does Mexicans call themselves Hispanics and Spanish call themselves Spanish when I feel like we all Spanish?
Yeah.
And it's to where the elders, they don't even really have like a concrete answer as well. But I
Exactly.
know overall, I would say, even though the East Coast and West Coast, has a difference with Hispanic and Spanish culture, I would say the Black and Hispanic, ethnicities, we get along very well. We get along very well.
Yeah.
Um, but that was a question that always resonated with me because I asked it a lot off air, and usually I get, well, if I'm talking to a Mexican brother and sister, they would say, well, I'm Hispanic. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm like, well, you got a whole reason why you want to do this, and so when I came on the West Coast, when I'm talking to people of the Latin descent, I'll be like, I'm not too sure whether they dark or light. I'll be like, yo, you Spanish? No, I'm Hispanic. You speak
It's
Spanish,
the
right?
same
Yeah, I
shit.
speak. I speak Spanish. So I'm confused. But I think every culture has their separations, which we have to learn how to do it. If you talk to a black
Yeah.
person, they be like, no, I'm not African. I'm African American. If you
Yeah.
talk to a Dominican and Puerto Rican person, they have they divide too, where it's
Yep.
like, yo, you Puerto Rican? Nah, I'm Dominican. You know,
What? No, yeah.
it's
It's a
funny.
trip, man. It's a trip.
It's a trip, but it's all good. All right, let me ask because I do want to rap because I got some other stuff I got to rap and I know you do too. What's in store for the future for Korea? Like what's next?
So yeah, man. Like right now, like I said earlier, like I took a step back. I wanted to reevaluate what I want to do. I have a 1.5-year-old son, so he takes up a lot of time, man. And God bless my wife. Like she, quick story. Like she was the one. I kept talking about starting a podcast, and she was the one that finally like just said, hey, stop. What do you need to do your podcast right now? Tell me. And I'm like, well, I need a laptop. I need mics. And she's like, okay. Went on Amazon. She's like, here's a laptop, here's a mic, here's everything. Boom. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't have the money. It's like, all right, boom. Ooh, I could get an Amazon credit card right now for $1,000. Boom. That could get you what you need. So she was the one who lit the fire, on my ass and be like, are you going to do this or are you going to talk about doing this? So God bless her for that. And, she's been my number one fan. She's been my number one supporter. And then, so I appreciated that a lot, man. And then, but now, on top of my 1.5-year-old, we have 2 other kids, and it gets a lot. I started seeing the toll that it was taking on her, and on top of that, we have like 5 dogs. So it's a lot, man. It's a lot for her. So, and I was like, dang, man, and then I wasn't getting a guest. And honestly, I was also like, yeah, like you said, like not the fear of rejection, but I was tired of reaching out to people, and being like, man, like I already know what they're going to say, and then I was running out of things to say because I noticed the last few pods, dog, were becoming more of like a vlog. Like I was just talking about my day, and although it's cool, right, I look back and I'm like, hold up, like this isn't what I want to do. I don't want people to come to my pod to just hear about my day. Like what the fuck? Like no, like I want to have something to talk about other than myself. And so I thought about that. So I'm like, you know what? Let me take a step back. Let me reevaluate how I want to talk about. And I gave the name such a broad name, Talkaria, for it can be really about anything. You get me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, which some people say it's a wrong thing. Some people say, hey, if you're gonna start a pod, we want to read the title and we want to know what we're gonna get ourselves into. You get me? So I was like, oh damn, but I went the other way. I went, I want to make it broad. I want to talk about everything and anything that interests me that I hope can interest somebody else, So I've been thinking about that, and like I said earlier, like I love conspiracies, man. But I've noticed that conspiracy theories have somewhat become political a little bit, So I want to touch more on like the fun ones, like for example, like flat Earth, like you mentioned earlier, right? That one, it's gotten a lot of traction,
Oh, yeah.
and whoever's listening to it. You don't really have to, like, it's not really a political kind of thing because it's like you either think it is or it's not. Or some people, like, like myself, I think it's more of kind of like a dimensions maybe. It could be more in that realm, rather than making it a planet or something like, hey, and maybe a ghost can be someone from either or under our dimension or over our dimension, something like that. Yeah, I'm veering off, but something like that. But yeah, so I want to talk about these fun conspiracies, that some people have never heard. For example, there's another one. I think it's freaking hilarious, dude. Some people don't believe pigeons are real. They believe they're like, yeah, right. That's you get me? Like I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? I see them, like they're flying around. But and then he sends me a video of I want to say, I don't know if it was Japan or China, but they have these drones that look exactly like pigeons, and they throw them and they flap their wings, and I'm like, holy shit! And then he sent me another video of a dead pigeon with wires coming out of it. It looked like it was some kind of machine. I'm like, well, maybe he could have eaten the wires, But anyway, these fun ones that a lot of people don't think about that I just like find hilarious. But the thing is, these people are actually doing their homework on it. So
Right.
I'm like, man, so my next thing that I'm probably gonna go, it's something called Taqueria Presents Will I Believe It, and it's me talking about these fun conspiracies, and then at the end I'm like, you know what, man, that one bought me over, dude. I think pigeons aren't real or something like that, or you know what, man, this earth is flat, or you know what, man, this guy was a little off his knocker, dude. I'm a globe kind of guy or something like that. So these fun ones that aren't really political, and it's just to engage the listener in something more fun. There's enough hate out there. There's enough doom scrolling on your phone that, hey, let's just take an hour or 45 minutes and let's talk about this fun thing that this guy thought of. So that's kind of where I'm going. And again, I could talk to myself about it. I could have my notes. I can have my notes there. I can have my bullet points on what I want to touch on, what I don't. And if a guest wants to come in support of it or against it, he could most definitely come and try to talk me into it or out of it. So it leaves the door wide open to something that I want to do and something that I find super freaking fun.
Amen. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, on Let's Talk About It. Hey, Brother Hector, it was a pleasure to have you on the show. I'm a fan of your show.
Thank
I'm a
you.
supporter. Please start it again. I don't know when you're going to start it,
All right,
but
soon.
I'm not going to sell it for you, but I want to tell everyone that catches this episode, this brother, he brings it. He's funny.
Thank
And
you,
he brings
man.
that Latin, he brings that
You already
personality
know.
to it. So,
You
you know
already
what I'm
know,
saying? Let's
man.
check out and all that. Yo, listen, make sure that you check out Tokaria. It's on Spotify. What else? Where else is it at? Hector? Tell
Right
me where
now,
it's at.
it's just on Spotify, man. I went the Joe Rogan route, dude, and made a Spotify exclusive, But now I am planning on doing a more, and I might do video because right now it's just audio.
Okay, no problem. I know it's just audio, but we gonna get video so we can see the reaction. The
Yes,
video thing is
sir.
becoming more favorite
Yes,
and
sir.
a better interaction. So that concludes another episode of Let's Talk About It. Don't forget that you can catch episodes every week on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, and other platforms that support podcasts. With that being said, love y'all, miss y'all, peace.
Peace.